Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 4 of July's Advisor Ambassador Program. My name is Zach Hewells, and I work in the Communications and Marketing Department here at NAFA National. We have a great speaker for you today, Peter Watson. Peter is a member of NAFA Texas, and he works for Watson Wealth Management. He is going to be presenting cash flow and time management today. And if you have any questions during the program, feel free to unmute yourself during the program. We would ask that you use the chat feature in the Zoom window. But if you have a question at the end, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question directly to Peter. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over. So welcome.
Hey, thanks, Zach. And to give y'all a little background about myself, I was in public accounting for about 4 years, working mainly with a Big Four firm, but worked for some small firms after that. And my background was in audit and due diligence accounting for mergers and acquisitions. So background about our practice, my father had been a financial advisor for 30 years and his broker-dealer's Principal Financial. And it got to the point where he didn't really have any successor to his business. And he was at the point where he didn't know how much longer he wanted to stay and when he wanted to retire. So it worked out well with our timing because I was getting burned out in accounting, and we started Watson Wealth Management 2 years ago in 2017, where we got to use his background of helping people retire and then my background of working with business owners and businesses, and it's been really a good partnership since then. Zach approached me about this topic specifically, and it's something that is a work in progress with me. I've learned some strategies from different advisors that I've known, also books and some other resources I'll leave with you all at the end. But it's something as far as any advisor or any staff that works for an advisor, our days are always changing and hard to keep up with. So it's definitely something that if you can master habits or master daily planning strategies, it'll definitely make your life a lot easier. And so I'll just get into it. Let's see. So like I said, a lot of stuff I'm doing is a work in progress, but really what I'm trying to focus on is planning my weeks in advance. So for example, Fridays are typically slower for us, especially in the afternoons. And that's a day that you can really utilize to plan. Probably in the mornings of Fridays, I get some business development done or we have client appointments, but really the afternoons is a time that you could block off for all the admin stuff that you don't really want to do. And usually for a lot of people, it's a time when you're slowing down mentally as well. So it's good to do all that easy admin stuff, either in Friday afternoon or a day where you are kind of winding down mentally, because it's not difficult to do, but it's just something that you have to do in order to make sure your week's successful. Also, as far as dailies, that business development is a huge task item that I'm really trying to hit on. Whether you do in-person prospecting, calling existing clients for reviews, or hit the cold calls, that's something that you should work in daily or get in the habit of doing it, because no one really likes doing it, but it's something that's going to help with another topic in my presentation, which is cash flow. And it's like exercise. You may hate doing it, or it may be fun to do, but it's always just hard to get up and actually do it. So that's something that I'm still working on implementing it, but that's something I'd recommend trying to work into your schedule daily. Also, as far as the admin side of things, we always get a ton of emails. I know I probably get 100 a day. 50% of them are spam or people trying to prospect and get my business. And then the other half are either client servicing or maybe incoming business development emails. But it's easy to get caught up in that, and you can easily spend half, if not all your day answering emails, or you may get an email at an inconvenient time and respond back to that and then get back to what you're doing. And then, it's just a vicious cycle. So that's something that I would recommend, is hitting them either really early in the morning if you're a morning person, or hitting them at the end of the day after you've done all the stuff to grow your business, such as business development or servicing existing clients, because those are definitely items that take precedence than some of the other admin emails. I'll get into it later on in the presentation. You always have to have some fluidity, so there may be a really important email that you have to answer, but likelihood is if it's in email form, it's probably not as urgent as you may think it is. Additionally, I've been doing bullet journaling, and this will help with you keeping track of your time and also planning. Basically, what you do is you just write down 8 a.m., woke up, got breakfast, 9 a.m., started on the phone or did in-person prospecting. Basically, just keep track of everything you've done. And this will actually help you a lot on the planning side of things, because if you've known what you've done for the past week, you can say, well, I blocked off these 2 hours for doing this task, but it's really taken me longer, or it's taken me shorter. And so it's a way that you can calibrate what you're doing. For me, I like also keeping a journal just to keep track of all the stuff going on in my life. So you can use bullet journaling for personal events too, if you want to help keep track of that. And there's a few other books that I'll mention at the end, but a lot of the self-help stuff, and for example, Dale Carnegie, they've always recommended keeping a journal. And it is easier to better yourself if you're able to keep track of all that stuff. And then get into the other ideas. Some people like to plan on Sundays. For me personally, I don't like doing that, just because it starts me thinking of the week ahead. And I don't know if y'all follow social media, but it's like the Sunday scaries. So I just would rather do it on Friday, and then on your weekend, stuff's planned out, and you can actually relax and enjoy the personal events going on in your life. And this also gets into the daily aspects, where I'll show you some examples, but there is this one podcast I listened to that said, if you plan at the beginning of each day and just hit on the 4 critical tasks that you really, really need to get done, that'll help you schedule time and travel time, for example, and different things you have to include into your schedule in order to be the most productive and successful. So I'll get into those in the next few slides. And then finally, this is something an advisor had told me to do, but he basically sets his schedule 2 weeks out. So, like I said, there could always be emergencies where you have to meet with someone sooner. But he basically says, okay, I'm meeting with these people 2 weeks out, and that way he's always got something lined up for himself. So, and if something's scheduled 2 weeks out, then it's easier to manage that time and be more efficient, because if you're scheduling stuff the week of or next week, there may be a bunch of appointments that get scheduled in between, either seen or unforeseen, that could complement or complicate how you are getting from point A to point B. So scheduling a little bit out ahead of time will help in that. And then this calendar is something that was given to me by my, I guess you could call him a manager when I started, but basically the guy that helped develop the newer agents at Principal. And you'll see there's green, yellow, and red on the calendar. And what that's saying is, for your green tasks, those are the ones that are bringing you business. So that's either sitting in front of a client doing prospecting calls, or just basically the client time. The red tasks are stuff that's not making you any money. It's just, but you have to have it in there. So for example, you have to eat lunch and you have to take breaks. But those items aren't necessarily going to bring you any money for your business. And then the yellow is more for just it's working, but it's the stuff that's not bringing you any money, but you have to do for your business. So checking emails, documenting any client interactions on your CRM, just stuff that is necessary that you have to do, but it's not something that's going to necessarily translate to cash flow. And then I apologize, the background may be a little light, but this is something I got off the podcast I mentioned called Accidental Creative, and he broke out daily plan sheets and also weekly plan sheets. And as you can see from this, this kind of encompasses a lot of what I said. So like under the date part of the sheet, there's 4 main tasks that you got to focus on. There's a study section where you can better yourself by either reading industry-specific material or something that requires a little bit of thought. Dailies for him is more of something where it's daily tasks that you have to get done that aren't necessarily like one of those all important ones. So for example, you have to do email daily. That's something you have to do. Also business development, that's something that you should or should probably work into your schedule. So that's more of what he was getting at with the dailies chart. And then it gives you space under that where you can do the bullet journaling, and then they have a tab sheet on the side where you can kind of color in your travel time, when you're going to get the task done, and all that. So I don't necessarily use this exact sheet, but I do incorporate it with the calendars I have. So for that thing on the side where you keep track of like your daily time, I mainly just use Outlook to list out all my tasks on there. And then I do have a paper calendar as well, because I just never got out of the habit of writing stuff down. So I do keep a paper copy that I correlate with my Outlook. But yeah, this is just a great way, or you can implement it into something that you're currently doing where it helps you keep track of all the stuff you're learning, all the stuff you're doing, and then it helps you recalibrate later on based off of that. The weekly planning, very similar, and you don't necessarily have to use this layout, but what the Accidental Creative founder did is he listed out the week and then a word of the week. So it's like either an objective of stuff you want to get done, or you could say learning or study, and just something that really encompasses what you're doing that week. Again, you hit objectives, big tasks, and studies, but it's really just trying to help you mentally prepare for the week and embody what you're trying to get done. So for example, there's certain weeks where I may be at a conference or doing some sort of training. So my objective that week would be to learn, to get industry specific knowledge. And then there's other weeks where my schedule may be pretty blank. And so those weeks I'm obviously going to do a lot of business development and spend time trying to formulate new ways to get business. So, it's pretty variable. And like I said, this is one way to do it, but this is something that you can incorporate to what you're doing now. I just think it's really good to think ahead to the next week, because it's easy to get lost pretty quickly. And then as far as cash, assuming Zach and Nifa knew how it correlates with timing, but cash flow, the way you structure your business can help a lot with how you spend your time doing things. So when I first got into the business a couple years ago, that same manager I mentioned, he was really telling me to focus on getting business clients for the 401k side. And the reason for that is it's similar to investment revenue. You get a lot of recurring trailers or quarterly fees, depending if you're fee only, coming in from that. So that's a way that really builds the structured cash flow. What I've found as I've been building my business and working with my dad on restructuring some of his clients is you can use if you have a certain advisory model that you like, those fees come in quarterly, monthly, depending on if you use SEI or some other platform. And that really helps structure as well, because hey, I'm not getting much coming in this month, but I know each quarter I'm going to get X amount, which helps you, mentally relax and not feel the pressure of needing to make a sale when, a lot of times clients are going to pick up on that. So, that's just something that's helped me as far as building advisory revenue and building 401k clients to keep that stream coming in. Also, to help with cash flow, not only do you got to keep a stream of clients or opportunities coming in, but also keeping track of them helps, because then where to spend your time as far as pursuing opportunities, and then also what's not a likely opportunity or what's a waste of time. I use, for a while I used Excel, because I would basically just list out the clients or the businesses that we had, and I would calculate based off our payout schedule what the approximate value of that opportunity would be, just so I'd know, hey, we're at this stage in the sales process with all these people. Once we close them, we'll get X amount of revenue. So, Excel's a great tool for that. You can really customize it that way. But we got introduced to Salesforce pretty recently through our broker dealer, and that has helped a lot. And I'll show you a page from Salesforce where where you can really do the stuff I mentioned. But whether it's Salesforce or another CRM, you could use tools there to keep track of all your opportunities. And that's something that I've found useful. Like with anything, the hard part about keeping track of that stuff is just finding time to make sure that you've updated all your opportunities, or that you've kept up with your spreadsheet. So that's something, again, we were talking about Friday afternoons. That's something where you could really knock out all this stuff on one day in the afternoon time, when no one's really either going to be in the office, or you're just mentally getting ready for the weekend. Last point, as far as consistent cash flow, is continuing to prospect. There's a book that I'll mention at the end, but basically, if you keep your pipeline consistently full, you're not going to feel the strain of missing out on a deal, and you're also going to make sure that there's consistent cash or advisory revenue being brought to your business. This is done different ways. So for us, it's a little bit of a hybrid, because I'm joined on with my dad, so he has some referrals built in, but I'm also living in a different city, so I'm having to market our business to new businesses or individuals. Also, there's an age discrepancy between myself and my dad, where I do have a CPA, but especially working with retirees, there's sometimes rightfully a mistrust of, hey, does this guy have enough experience, yada yada. So the best way is to I found by prospecting businesses, either do it in person or through the phone, where you set up appointments, and then you can get a lot of ancillary business from that. And then once you get your business established, then you can rely more primarily on referrals, but you just got to ask for them, because a lot of times clients will have people that you can talk to. They just may need a spark, or something to remind them, hey, we work with physicians too, or, just different strategies to pull referrals out. But those are three key areas that, based off what I've been doing, have helped me be more consistent in bringing cash flow into our business. Also, just it helps to be organized. And so for me, I was always not as organized as I probably should be. But if you're more, if you're very, I wouldn't say type A, but just organized in general, it'll help you a lot with this time management and cash flow. And it probably make you feel more at ease just knowing, hey, this deal didn't go through, but I got like 25,000 coming in next quarter. So it's just a way to put your mind at ease. And like I said, we started using Salesforce more often for our practice, and our pipeline doesn't look exactly like this, but basically you can separate, however your sales process is, you can separate it into those different tabs. And then from there, you'll know, hey, at the proposal and price quotation stage, we got 370,000 that's just sitting there, and then it gives you a little warning sign if you don't have any task associated with it that are continuing the deal. So, this isn't, I wish my pipeline looked this nice, but this is probably for an enterprise level clientele, but you get the idea where you need to separate the sales process into different stages for each prospect or client that is doing additional business. And that will help you determine when cash is coming in and at what time. It's not an exact science. It's kind of like I used to work with companies that did budgets, and you're never going to get a budget that lines up exactly with what you predict. But this helps a lot in determining how you reach your goals, and if you do have certain levels, like if you want to hit MDRT, if you want to hit different levels of MDRT, then you'll know how much you got in the pipeline. Because if you don't have the amount that will achieve your goals, then that just lets you know, hey, I got to go out and prospect more. I got to ask for more referrals, or hit up local businesses, yada yada. But I really like this because it's visual, and it visualizes the sales process, which for me, a lot of times you hear about it and you're supposed to know the sales process, but it kind of gets lost in all the verbiage in it. But really laying it out like this in a linear way helps me a lot. And then I mentioned a few books earlier. The one that really helps out with prospecting, I like Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blunt. The book's geared towards anyone in the sales profession or an entrepreneur. And really, if you're a financial advisor, you're pretty much an entrepreneur because you're responsible for your own business, and a lot of times you may have your own DBA. And the fact of the matter is, no one's going to really call you up. I mean, there are some business we get from people that call in our office, but primarily the way contacts are made and the way you get people to enact your plan is you have to go out and meet them or meet with the businesses, because they may not know that there's an issue. So that's a really good book, and he even gets into time management within that book. And I think for anyone that's on the business development side of our business, it'd be a great read. Accidental Creative, that one's geared towards entrepreneurs, and especially for our travelers, or for our industry, we're road warriors, so we're out on the roads all the time. That's a great podcast to listen to. He goes into different areas that benefit entrepreneurs. So he does a whole thing on time management, and it's how I got those daily and weekly plan charts. Also, he goes into a variety of other topics, which you may find useful. Geared more towards our industry is Retirement Income Masters. Y'all may have heard of Tom Hegna already. I really like this one because it's from the advisor's perspective, and it gets into each advisor and how they are building or have built their business. And so it may not get into as much as the prospecting side, but it will definitely show how you can get more efficient and what you should focus on, as, especially for the retirement market. So if you're dealing with individual retirees, I think it would be a great read. Finally, Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Again, it's more geared towards the general sales industry, but especially for our type of business, we're dealing with a lot of intangibles and maybe high dollar value transactions. So that the way of selling he developed is less the type you see in like Boiler Room or some of these other movies where it's like high pressure, you ring their arm and they buy. For especially the business type of deals, it may take years or a while for them to actually matriculate into deals. So I feel like Neil and some of the other sales books even reference Spin Selling, but it's a great read and pretty applicable to what we do. But yeah, that was some tidbits that I had picked up along the way, either on my own education or through other advisors that I'd worked with. And if y'all had any questions or want to contact me with more book recommendations or anything else, just feel free to share on this podcast, or I'm sure Zach can share my information.
Sure, of course. And thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time and your presentation. Yeah. So if anyone does have any questions for Peter, please ask them in the chat, or you can feel free to unmute yourself. And if you would like his contact info, to reach out to him and ask him any further questions, maybe something pops up later, feel free to reach out to me at recruitment@nafa.org. I can put that in the chat. And I can go ahead and pass that along to you, as well as any other information.
Yeah. Well, there's a few other books that came to mind while I was going through all this, and yeah, I mean, that's the most I've learned has been through self-study. There's been and a lot of it, you'll read one book and the authors will reference another book or through a podcast. But definitely working with more advisors or experienced advisors helps, because they teach you all the tricks. I see Brett's question about fanatical prospecting. I'd say the most profound one was the phoning chapter, because really, and I see it within myself sometimes, whether it's a completely cold call or if it's someone that's warm or an existing client, it's sometimes hard to pick up the phone. And I feel like he went through that chapter really articulately, where basically just saying how people feel nervous or for whatever reason don't do it. And it's so weird, because you think of sales, you think of people that are constantly wanting to get out there and make business, but a lot of people are too afraid to pick up the phone. And so that's something that my dad never had. I saw the 1,000-pound phone. Yeah, it's and that's something that's helped me. Sometimes when I feel down or don't feel like doing anything, I'll listen to that chapter and then I'm like, all right, F it, I gotta call somebody. But I listened. There's another podcast with Michael Keitzes, and he had someone on that focused mainly on 401k building their business. And what she did is she looked up the 5,500, which is a public document you can look up for each business. And she would go in person and introduce herself to the business owner and just set up future meetings. So that may be something to try too. as far as building business. It gives you a way to look up who the owner or the key decision maker is and build rapport with the gatekeeper. Whereas completely through the phone, it may be more efficient, but you don't get that type of rapport building.
Well, great. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Peter. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, if anybody would like any more information, feel free to reach out to me and I can supply you with his contact or answer any other questions.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and appreciate it, Zach. This is really fun. So if y'all ever need an experienced advisor, maybe you could have my dad and I on there and talk about
Hey, father-son presentation. That'd be cool. You guys can riff. That'd be really cool.
I could get into more of how it makes the practice interesting because I come from a more technological background.
Sure.
Whereas he has his assistant check his email, so it's completely different. But yeah,
awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye, everyone.